All right, so now we've kind of understand, right, the attention mechanism in transformer, right, and it is very, successful in natural language processing, right, in particular language translation, and we want to also see if this kind of technique or architecture is also able to apply to, in the vision domain, right, doing image classification, object detection, semantic segmentation, etc. So yeah, the answer is yes, right? So here, the researchers introduced this vision transformer. Okay, so this vision transformer is proposed in this ICR paper, right? An image is worth 16 by 16 words. Transformers for image recognition at a scale. Again, so the authors are from Google, because I think they are very familiar with transformer architecture, so they can easily take the architecture and kind of map it in the vision domain, right? So before I go to actually talk about this vision transformer, I want to ask, what do you think this vision transformer will look like, right? So assuming the most of the technique or component will be there, right? How do you propose to using transformer to process images, right? Images are composed of pixels, right? Again, we can consider that's a sequence, right? It's just like a language, different words. So what do you think this vision transformer can or transformer architecture can be applied for simple tasks like image classification, before I dive into the detail? Anyone? Okay. So for this paper, by the name, you kind of understand the high level, right? So they treat image as words, right? Words 16 by 16 words, right? So yeah, basically all these components going to be very similar in this original transformer. But here, I just want to give you an idea, right? So this got very popular since it's published in 2020. It also got like 11,000 citations already, right? Just like 2 years, it got so many citations. You can see how popular it becomes also in the vision domain. So because most of the components or the building blocks gonna be the same, and the only difference is that here we are not doing translation, right? We are not, especially if we're doing image classification, right? The input is image. We also have an output, right? One-to-one mapping, and not just like the translation. We have many-to-many mapping, right? So we have an input sequence. The output is also going to be a sequence. So for this kind of sequence-to-sequence task, they usually using this kind of encoder-decoder structure, right? But for here, we're doing classification, and we only need the encoder part, right? So basically, we want to using the encoder to encode the features and using that to do the prediction, right? Which class or generate the class probability. Like I mentioned, right? The naive way, to apply transformer is that, for an image, right? We can consider each pixel as a word, right? So for a simple case, right? If you have a 200 by 200 images, then you have 40,000 links, sequence, right? We treat each pixel as a word, right? So you have 40,000 words, and you can do this, apply, feed this into the transformer encoder and do the processing, right? But this is not ideal, especially from the computation point of view, right? And remember, we talked about the before, right? So we have the input links when we're doing the matrix multiplication, right? So essentially, the computation and the memory cost going to be quadratic to this kind of input dimension, right? 40,000 is only like 20 by 200 by 200, right? If you think about, if we're gonna process a large resolution image, right, even like 4K image, you can see how this number can become intractable or become infeasible for actual implementation, or cannot fit into the hardware. So the researchers kind of think a way to tackle this issue. So what they do is, instead of consider the single pixel, right? So we divide this image into small patches, okay? So in this kind of very cool animation here, they divide this image into this 9 patches, right? So, 3 by 3 cell, right? So each of this cell is going to be considered a small patch, okay? So you end up with 9 patches as input. As compare, you consider these like individual pixels, then you end up with 40,000 input, right? So here, the input length is significantly reduced, right? You only have 9 now. Then we can, using a projection layer, right? To generate some of the feature embedding. So again, you can using some of the simple, the multi-layer perceptron, or you can even consider using convolutional neural network, because this small patch, again, still contains some of the context there, right? You can even using a CNN, a couple of layers of CNN to extract the features, and using the feature embedding as the input, right? So now if you're using the CNN as, feature extractor, you can generate 9 feature embedding, right? Maybe each of them have like 200 or maybe 300 dimensions. And you can, using that feature embedding and combined with this positional embedding, then feed into this transformer encoder, right? Which is the architecture here on the right. Then you can do this kind of multi-head attention, right? Normalization, and doing the linear layer, and you can stack multiple of this transformer encoder, right? So you can do this kind of process. So of course, the number of patches is something you can experiment with, right? So maybe you can have more patches, right? So each of the small patches will capture a local region, right? And depending on how much resource you have. So this is the way to kind of address, for image, if we only consider pixels as the basic unit, we end up with a very long sequence, okay? And that's for image classification. And we can also take this vision transformer for other applications like object detection, semantic segmentation, and pose estimation, or other vision tasks. So here I'm using one of our work published in ICCV 2021 as an example. So we are using this vision transformer for human pose estimation. So basically, the input is going to be a sequence of 2D pose, right? So basically, just coordinate of maybe 17 key point, right, or the body joints, and we want to predict the corresponding joint or pose in the 3D space, right? So basically, we want to predict the pose in the 3D space based on the input in the 2D space. So what we do is we kind of take for each of the pose, for each of the joint, right? We consider that's a sequence, right? For each frame, we have 17 joints, right? We using that as an input and feed that into the transformer encoder and generate the feature embedding for each of the joint, okay, within one frame, okay? Once we have that, so basically one frame become a one feature embedding to model that joint correlation within this frame. Then we can using another transformer to model that temporal correlation, right? Because the input is a sequence, and we want to model that temporal correlation, and hopefully we are able to make a very accurate prediction, a single pose for the center frame. So this is another example that we can also using vision transformer, for this pose estimation, not like the traditional image classification. And this is just an example to show you the outcome, right? So this is the input 2D, and this is the predicted pose in 3D space, okay? So here I've also list a couple of resources, in particular surveys and codes you can look into. In particular for vision, right? So there's actually a lot of surveys, a couple of surveys existed, like transformers in vision, a survey on vision transformer. And since we are talking about medical image computing, I also list a recent survey of using transformer architectures for medical image processing, right? For classification, registration, segmentation, and even image generation, cross-modality generation. So you can check out these surveys and see how transformer has been applied in the vision domain, okay? One thing I also want to note is this particular survey, they are targeting efficient transformers, right? As we mentioned, the memory and computational complexity, used to compute the attention matrix is going to be quadratic to the input sequence length, right? The T. So people think of, okay, how can we, kind of reduce complexity, maybe from quadratic to linear complexity, right? So this is going to be save a lot of memory and computational cost. So there's a lot of strategies. People think of basically just how to reduce complexity to do the matrix multiplication, right? So I also encourage you to check out this survey if you're interested in applying some efficient transformer in your application. Maybe you don't have a lot of or resource, or maybe you require like a real-time inference, right, for your application. Okay. And also there's a couple of very good resource for code, right? So I also want to highlight this one, the Hugging Face. Maybe some of you guys have already heard of this library. They let me actually show you. Okay, so I believe now you can see my web browser, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would just click this Hugging Face. Okay. So they have a lot of transformer architectures, right? Models, right? If you're interested in language, right? This BERT, GPT models are gonna be here. And let's see if we can find vision transformer. Yeah, so here, CVT, right, from Microsoft, introduce convolutions to vision transformer. Okay, so basically this is like hybrid network, right? Using convolution and self-attention in transformer to build this pipeline. And I think there's also the original vision transformer. Okay, yeah, I believe there's original ViT there, but here again, another example, right? The mobile ViT. Again, this architecture is targeted for efficiency, right? Because they want to deploy vision transformer on some mobile devices, right? So how can we build lightweight, mobile-friendly vision transformer is also very important. Yeah, so as you can see here, right, the list goes on, right? Okay, actually I found it. This vision transformer, ViT, right? So you may check out this. Just, yeah, maybe actually we can click it. And so they have all these, if you want to just call this ViT, right? So what kind of you have to config parameters and also give you an example, right? So maybe you just call this model, right? ViT model. Yeah, and then like we mentioned, there's a couple others, right? A lot of others actually, like a mobile ViT, maybe just call mobile ViT model, okay? And you specify the configuration. So it's very convenient. So highly recommend you guys check this out if you are interested in using vision transformer or transformer for language processing or vision task. Okay. Okay, let me go back. Okay, so yeah, that's actually the end of this lecture. So yeah, hopefully, from the past, counting this lecture, we spent 4 lectures to talk about the basic, the simple, the fully connected neural network, then CNN, recurrent neural network, attention mechanism, and now the transformer architecture. So I hope you guys get at least like a high level idea, right? Different architectures, how they are designed for different tasks. And so with this kind of background knowledge, hopefully you are able to understand some of the advanced topic I will introduce in the later lectures. Like we actually talk about different tasks like segmentation, self-supervised learning, and other applications in medical image computing. So hopefully you are equipped with enough background knowledge to understand some of the advanced concept and topics. And this will also help you to ease the understanding or reading the research papers, right? Because you're going to do the review for those papers I assigned. So with this knowledge, hopefully you will find that going to be easier for you to understand some of the at least the deep learning related concept. Okay.